Hi, I'm Shoestring Jay and welcome back to my channel where I talk about all things thrifty, frugal and sustainable. And today I'm going to talk about food prices and the continued increase in food prices. It just seems to be relentless. It's been relentless for years, hasn't it now? I keep thinking every year, oh, things are going to stabilise now. Maybe things will start to drop, things will get better, but it hasn't happened yet and I don't know when it's going to happen. So I was looking at prices this morning online, just doing a bit of research for this video, and they had gone up quite a bit up to June, and in July they've risen to 5.2%. So that's above the overall inflation rate, which is about 3.6% apparently. So food prices are just increasing quicker than a lot of other things, and that's something really basic to us, isn't it? We need to eat. We all need to eat. So what can we do? Is there anything we can do to mitigate these price increases? I'm just going to go through some basic things that I do. But first of all, just looking at what's actually gone up the most, just look from my research this morning. Apparently the price of chocolate is up by 16%, and that's to do with the weather in Africa where it's grown. So that could just get worse, couldn't it? Not good for us chocoholics, really. Although that doesn't impact on us day to day, does it? Because it's not a staple food. We don't have to have chocolate to live. If you're a chocoholic, you may disagree with that statement, but really, we don't need chocolate. It's not something we need to get by. When I'm a vegetarian or pescatarian actually, so I don't eat meat, but the cost of meat is up a lot, and I still buy it for the dog and I buy it for Justin because they still eat meat. And that's gone up overall by 5.7%, but beef has gone up by 17%. That's a hell of a lot. It seems to be quite a complicated picture. So I'll put the report that I was looking at, or two of the reports that I was looking at, in my description box if I remember. But it seems quite complex. There's a range of issues around why the price of beef has gone up particularly. But food inflation's also affected other basics like milk and cheese and eggs. Apparently cakes, again, we don't need cakes, but most of us, milk, cheese and eggs, unless we're vegan, and then, we're probably going for alternatives which are a similar price anyway. And the other thing in the UK that has affected prices, apparently, is the government has increased the minimum wage and national insurance contributions. So that's impacted on retailers. And they're still making a big profit. They're not making record profits. I think last year some of them were looking at record profits, and this has obviously affected their bottom line. But for me, their workers are amongst some of the lowest paid workers in the UK, so everything's going up for them as well. So we do need national minimum wage, so I think that's absolutely fair enough, and I think the retailers should take the hit, but they say they are, and they can only take so much. I think it's their shareholders that can only take so much, so I don't feel very sorry for them. I think they did really well all through COVID, and they continue to do well because they are not an industry that we're going to say, oh, we're going to stop using you now, because it's food and we need to use them. So they're always going to do okay, aren't they? But anyway, it's probably just not as simple as retailers profiteering. I think a lot of us did feel that that was part of the problem at one point. I don't think it's quite as simple as that. Anyway, I filmed this on my phone and people are texting me for some reason, so I've just had to stop it and turn all the volume down because it's annoying, isn't it? Ding, ding, ding. Anyway, moving on to how we mitigate this and what we can do to bring our grocery prices down, or at least keep them on a level. And I'll go through the 10 things that I think are kind of the most important. You may disagree, and please do add your comments below if you think I've missed anything out. So what I like to do, my number one, is to shop from your cupboards. Obviously you've got to have something in your cupboards, but a lot of us have. We've got things rammed to the back of the cupboards that we've forgotten about. We've bought impulse purchases that we don't feel like, So we've got things usually that we could, if we have the will, start to incorporate into what we're going to eat for the week. So a bit of reverse meal planning, go through everything you've got. Bring some of the older things, like if you've got older packets of pasta or rice at the back of your cupboard, bring them to the front so you're keeping things circulated and you're using older things so you don't get to the point where you think, wow, I've had this bag of pasta since 2010, I'm going to throw it in the bin now. Extreme, but I know I know people that have had this experience. It also stops you from buying duplicates of things that you've already got. So you might already have 10 jars of pasta sauce and you keep thinking, well, we use a lot of pasta sauce, so I'm going to buy more. So a bit of shopping from your cupboards prevents you from buying things, spending money that you don't need to. And moving on from this, number 2 is to make a meal plan and a shopping list to go alongside it. So you can use your reverse meal planning from your stock take of your cupboards and your fridge and your freezer, and make sure that you make a meal plan based around those things. And that satisfying thing is that when you do that, you might think, well, actually, I don't need to buy a single thing for this dinner on this day. We've got everything that we need. And also can make you a bit more adventurous, because you might then search out recipes that you haven't made before and come up with some real gems because you're using things up, and you can incorporate those into your meal plan. And I also find that if I do a meal plan and then a shopping list, it saves me a lot of time and mental energy, because each night I know what we're going to have, and I do sometimes juggle them around a bit. I know what we're going to eat roughly, and so I don't have to think about it. In the morning I can think, oh, what have we got for tea? We're going to have tuna pasta bake. Make sure that I've got the ingredients to hand, or perhaps I might need something out of the freezer for a particular meal so I can get it out and defrost it. So it just helps me to feel more organised, in control. And if I've been out all day and I get back and I'm not scrabbling around in the cupboards thinking, oh God, what am I going to cook? I've got these things and I don't know what to cook. I know what I've got to cook. I've got the things out ready. I can just go for it. So it saves a lot of time, mental energy. It saves a lot of time and mental energy in the supermarket as well. So I'm not kind of wandering around aimlessly thinking, oh, I'll buy a bit of this and I'll buy a bit of that and what should we have on this day, and forgetting what I've already got. I can just whiz around the supermarket, buy what I need. I don't mess around being tempted by things that I don't want and, just wasting time really. So I think that's a good thing. And focus on eating basic foods. I think there's a lot of novelty stuff or novel foods, new foods that you haven't seen that look tempting, that are being heavily marketed when you go around the supermarket. But if you focus what you're going to eat on basic stuff, so I'm talking like basic vegetables, if you eat meat, cheaper meats like chicken, potatoes, rice, pasta, tinned tomatoes and easy tins of things like lentils and beans and things that are kind of cheap but nutritious and minimally processed, and won't cost you loads of money, are easy to use. Most people like them, they're not weird. You're not going to buy something that's peculiar. What did I come across when I was doing research for this? It was a type of plum that tasted of bubblegum. I bet they're really expensive, but then, if I bit into a plum and it tasted of bubblegum, I'm not sure that that's going to appeal to me much. I can imagine you putting those in the kids' lunchboxes and them just chucking them away. So, avoiding those kind of novelty foods and focusing on stuff, people will eat and like flour and dairy and eggs and cheese and all substitutes if you're a vegan, and tinned tuna, easy stuff you can easily incorporate into your meals, rather than things that TikTok tells you you've got to buy. And again, I was looking at some of these things when I was thinking about doing this video, and there are things like, let me tell you can buy all types of artisan pasta, all different shapes and different colours and different flours, trendy but expensive. My daughter actually gave me some massively long spaghetti, or it's pasta, I don't think it's called spaghetti, I don't know what it's called, it's about this long. She said, oh, I got this for Christmas and I don't know, when am I ever going to use this, and I can't fit it in my cupboard, do you want it? So I took it and I said, well, if I couldn't fit that in my cupboard, I'd just break it up and use it. So I don't know, I've obviously trained my daughter badly because she gave it to me and I've got it and I'm going to incorporate it into this week's meal plan. And then you've got things like mushroom coffee. Mushroom coffee sounds revolting, but it's probably good for your gut, because lots of things are good for your gut. But plain basic yogurt is good for your gut. You don't have to go and buy mushroom coffee. Turmeric appears in lots of things as well, but you can put turmeric in things. It's anti-inflammatory, it's good for you. You can make your own turmeric latte if you want to. It's not difficult to make, and you can just add it to stews and curries and whatever else you're going to make. Things to make a nice colour as well. So you don't have to buy turmeric sourdough or you know, whatever else, turmeric yogurt or whatever else you can see, and spend more money on it. If you really want to incorporate turmeric into your diet, you can quite easily. So basically just eat foods that your grandparents would recognise if they saw them now. So they probably don't know what cloud bread is and lived all their lives without it. So you can too, and save yourself some money. So learn to cook for yourself. I say this, I harp on about this a lot. Some people say, I can't, it's too difficult, I don't have time, etc., etc. But it is not difficult to cook. Honestly, I am not some kind of super chef at all. I've just learnt some basic techniques over the years, and I don't spend a lot of time in the kitchen. I used to love cooking and I would do fancy stuff when I had time. These days I'm kind of over it, you know. I don't do fancy dinner parties. I'm over it. We need to eat. We want to eat something fairly cheap and nutritious, and I will rustle something up for dinner or for lunch in 10 to 15 minutes. I really don't spend a lot of time. If you've watched any of my Frugal Kitchen series, you'll see I do basic stuff and I enjoy it, and I quite enjoy cooking it because it's not taking loads of time. It's not really chefy, and you know, we enjoy eating it. When you buy something that is ready-made, you're paying for someone else to have chopped it. You're paying for the factory, for the staff in the factory, for all the labour and the energy involved, all the packaging involved, all the transportation involved, all the marketing involved in selling that product. And if it's something relatively simple, I mentioned pasta sauce. I always have a couple of pasta sauces in my stores, but generally speaking, I'll make my own because it's ever so easy to chop up an onion, some garlic, get some canned tomatoes, chuck in other veg that you might have lying around like peppers or spinach or, you know, whatever you've got. You might want to make it a beanie pasta sauce by chucking in a can of baked beans or some lentils or something. You could add a can of tuna. You know, you could do all sorts of things. You don't have to buy it ready made, and it doesn't take very long at all, and it's homemade. So you can also have a look at some of the recipes on my blog, shoestringcottage.com. They tend to be really straightforward because that's the sort of cooking I like to do. So this is actually number 5. I'm forgetting to actually number my tips, but number 5 would be change supermarket if you can. I like Aldi and I like Lidl. Lidl's the one I tend to go to because it's the nearest to me nowadays. I appreciate not everybody has an Aldi or Lidl near to them, but compare supermarket prices and go to your cheapest supermarket. They are called discounter supermarkets, Aldi and Lidl, for a reason. And apparently, when I was doing this research this morning, The Guardian says that Lidl picked up 500,000 new customers over the course of July. So lots of us are looking to kind of downsize our supermarket shop, and if that means going to discount stores, then we're prepared to give it a try. I also like them because I find there's a lot less temptation. They just stock fewer products, so it takes you less time to get round and you are tempted by far fewer bits and bobs that you didn't go in for. So that brings me to my next tip, which is to know your temptations. So if you know that you are going to get drawn to the middle of Lidl, as they call it, or, you know, the cheapy bits of stuff you didn't know you needed in the middle of Aldi, then just shop round the edge of the supermarket. Don't go in the middle. I know that if I do, I'll get tempted by things. So I just don't, unless I've seen an offer for something and I know where it is and I've gone in for that thing. I can't think of anything that I've done that I've needed from the middle of Lidl recently in recent times at all. I don't need that stuff, so I'll just not go in there. And I also won't go into, they have a whole aisle of things that are specials, and I tend not to look at them because they're all things I wouldn't have wanted. They're not my basic foods. They tend to be kind of international foods. So for me, that's not something that I need to buy a lot of. And you also find there's a lot in the middle of Lidl, there's a lot of cheap clothing. So I think, well, I don't need that, you know, so I tend not to buy it. Also, if you go into other supermarkets, avoid the clothing and homeware because although it may be cheaper than other places, if you didn't go in for that particular item, it's not on your list, then it's money that you didn't need to spend, isn't it? So, you know, if you know that you needed birthday cards, then, you know, go and look at the birthday cards. But I find that they're not always the cheapest. So I'll go somewhere like the Card Factory for birthday cards because that's a bit cheaper. But, you know, it depends what you're looking for. You know, if you're really looking for something specific, then go to those bits. Otherwise, steer clear, and that will save you money because you're going in for groceries and spending money on other stuff. think this is number 7, and it's a real basic tip. Don't go in hungry. Don't go in hungry. Eat before you go shopping, because if you go in hungry, you're much more likely to be tempted by all these things that are not on your shopping list that look delicious, and your stomach is telling you need to buy them rather than your head. So don't go in hungry. And also try not to take the kids with you if you've got children. I know it's really hard, especially now we've just started the summer holidays here in the UK. Sometimes you have to take the kids with you shopping, but again, make sure they're not hungry when you go in. Make sure they've got drinks. Maybe have some snacks for them before you go in. I used to try and keep mine occupied, so my older children, I would give them a little shopping list and say, can you go and find me these things? I'd give them very specific brands. Sometimes I'd make them take them back and get something different. It's good for them, builds up their skills. They know what to look for. I'll say, get, I don't know, Asda's own pasta sauce. I keep going on about pasta sauce like I eat it all the time. I don't. Or, you know, Tesco's own largest pasta you can buy and that kind of thing, and then bring them back for me. So it helps their skills. You know, you want your children to grow up and know how to do supermarket shopping and compare prices and that sort of thing. Keeps them occupied, so it's a win-win. Smaller children, you know, take in some crayons and colouring book with you. Let them sit in their trolley and do some reading or some colouring or whatever. Just keep them occupied and you'll get in and out much more quickly. And number 8 is shop the lower shelves. So supermarkets will tend to put premium products at eye level. It's kind of a well-known marketing technique, but it's easy to forget it when you're just trying to rush around the supermarket. Shop the lower shelves. It will tend to be supermarket own brands, bulk packets of things, just cheaper stuff, you know, stuff that the supermarket are not going to make as much money off. So shop those lower shelves, try and avoid the premium brands at eye level. And then number 9, while you're doing that, compare prices, because actually sometimes supermarket brands are not cheaper. Maybe there's a branded product that is on offer, but compare weight for weight or compare volume if it's a liquid. And they don't make it easy for you, because sometimes they'll say price per 100 grams is this, and sometimes they'll say price per kilogram is this, and you have to do a little bit of mental arithmetic. But it's really worth doing it, because you can see what things are really costing you. Then it also kind of lodges in your brain, and you know what's a reasonable price for 100 grams of cheese or whatever, you know, and what is actually quite expensive. So really compare prices as you go around, and don't just shop without looking at the prices. Going out with my mother, honestly, she just goes, I never look at the prices. I was thinking, how am I your daughter? The other day I went to M&S with her and she bought 2 trifles because my sister was going around for dinner and she wanted dessert. And she got to the till and she went, how much? She'd only bought about 5 items. And it turned out that the trifles were £2.75 each. So I said to her, this is why you look at the prices, Mum. Why am I having to tell you this? So compare prices. And finally, reduce food waste. So think about what you're going to use. So if you buy a massive tub of yogurt, are you actually going to use all of that yogurt, or is it actually going to be cheaper to buy a smaller tub because you're not going to use that? You're going to end up chucking half of it away. Or if you do buy a big pack of something, like sometimes I'll buy a big pack of peppers because I use quite a lot of peppers, but I always have in my mind that if I don't use all these, I'm going to chop them up and freeze them because they freeze really well, and then you can just stick them in things in the future. So I will save money by buying a big pack of peppers, but I want to make sure, nearly turned into a tongue twister then, didn't it? I want to make sure I can actually use them. So really bear that in mind. Are we actually going to use what we buy? When you're doing your planning, what's already in your fridge and your freezer that needs using quickly, plan those into your meals. I always think that, reducing food waste when you've got a family is harder because they will tend to help themselves to stuff that they fancy rather than stuff that needs eating. So have an eat me first section of your fridge. When your children or your partner's coming from work or from school and they're hungry, kind of steer them towards the eat me first shelf on your fridge, or the fruit that needs eating first in the fruit bowl, and try and get them into the habit of thinking not what do you fancy first, what actually needs eating first, and so that things don't go to waste. You could talk to them about the carbon emissions from food that goes to landfill and that sort of thing. Think about it as money down the drain or money in the bin. You would not get a fiver, chuck it in the bin. But if you've got a fiver's worth of food and it goes in your food waste or it goes in the bin, that's literally what you're doing, isn't it? So you can train your family and the people around you to think in the same way. And don't waste food. Use your freezer. I find my freezer's great for even little bits of food. So I tend to have a box where I'll chuck little bits of cooked veg. And when I'm doing one of my big soup making sessions, I'll get all of that out, defrost it, and it will go in. This is good for mashed potato, particularly, or bits of potato, because it's good for thickening soups and stews. So just think about things like that, how you'll use them, and whether it's worth, just freezing leftovers. Sometimes you can get yourself ready meals like that, can't you? And if you've got a portion worth of soup or a portion worth of stew, you've got a ready meal for somebody, haven't you, in your freezer? And you can also batch cook, can't you? So, if you've got a whole load at the moment, we've got courgettes coming thick and fast. So, batch cook things like ratatouille. I do big pots of ratatouille, and what we're not going to use will go in the freezer. I'll do big batches of soups, I'll do batches of stews, and it's just to save so much time later, and it saves money because you're not wasting things, you're buying bigger packs of things maybe, it's just worth batch cooking every now and then. You might do one day a month where you batch cook a whole load of pasta sauce so you don't have to buy all those jars I keep going on about, or you might batch cook a whole load of chili con carne or chili sin carne if you're a vegetarian, all sorts of things that you can do in one go, and it just saves so much time and it gives you so much satisfaction to have all these little meals ready to go in your freezer. So anyway, those are the 10 most important things that occur to me anyway to help us slash the cost of our groceries in some cases, or at least keep your grocery prices down as things are getting more and more expensive constantly. Let me know what yours are in the comments below. I would really like to know if I've missed anything out. And if you like this, don't forget to give me the thumbs up and subscribe so you see future videos. And I will see you next time for my Frugal Kitchen on Wednesday. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.